Hello, Army of Light, Earth Division, the boots on the ground. Shawna L. here, and it is October 23rd, 2024. Yeah, it's like 1 in the morning. I'm just now sitting down to make this video. It's been another one of those nights with Melchizedek. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We are talking about the Bible, decoding the living word. We have been at this a few months now. We're getting into Revelation. We've talked about who is God, what is God? And then last week, what is Satan? Who is Satan? Lucifer, the devil, is hell real? Excuse me. So today we are continuing to just slowly get into Revelation here and talk a little bit more about some of the symbology that's here. So I'm very excited about this because we're getting to this point now where we're getting into this nitty gritty about the 7 seals and all the horses and all the plagues and the pestilence and all the good things that Revelation talks about, all the end times type of stuff. So I'm tired. I'm sorry. I'm just going to apologize right now. Before we get into tonight's channeling from Melchizedek and me complaining a bit more about how long it took for us to get to this point where I could be making this video, I do want to thank everybody who signed up for Thursday's live channeling event with Melchizedek. So this is only the second time that we've done this with Melchizedek. The first time, I believe, was in June. We only have about 20 people signed up. I'd love to see double that, triple that if possible. The Eventbrite link will be in the description for this video, and it's a donation base. Pay $1 on up. So whatever you feel like donating would be wonderful. Thank you. Also, I'll say, if you do not want to go through the registration process and you don't have the funds to donate, if you email me, I can send you the Zoom link for it. You won't get all the other emails and all the reminders and everything, but I can send you the email if you'd like to join us live and if you've got a question. My email is shawnna@shawnalfrancis.com. So shoot me a note and I will shoot you the link, but I'd prefer that you guys sign up through Eventbrite. All right. That's that. Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific. Please sign up. Let's see some great questions coming through for Melchizedek that I can channel for you live. Okay. The other thing. Oh, I wanted to quickly touch on the idea of meditation too. This is coming up quite a bit in the one-on-one sessions that I'm doing with folks. I think it's really time that we start thinking differently about what it means to meditate as we are doing this light work. So, and I'll talk more about this when I have more brain power, but in essence, team, I don't want you to be thinking about meditation as you're just going to sit there and do nothing with your mind blank. That's not what we're doing. We are creating a sacred space, an opportunity for you to commune with higher wisdom, with your higher self, with your guides, with our guides. You are allowing yourself to get quiet. You are making space to have a dialogue or to have communion or to be able to feel and experience something outside of your own consciousness. We're all here to do this incredible light work. We are here to be beacons on behalf of the light. And this is an incredibly dense field right now. So whatever you can be doing to help strengthen your light, to make it more powerful, more bright, to make sure that you are in alignment with your soul's purpose and not spending a bunch of time and effort doing things that really are not important. Meditation, getting quiet each day could be a huge tool for you, a huge advantage in getting to where you want to be in terms of walking this path every day. So again, team, let's get rid of the old ideas of what meditation is. The new ideas here. You're going to get quiet. You're going to get your mind still. But you're also going to ask your team, your guides, for help. You're going to ask, how can you be of service? How can you better commune with them? How do you get to know them better? How do you have these dialogues? So start making space for this and start asking for what you want. So be very deliberate with this and be very straightforward. Speak these things out loud. Set a full intention and affirmations for this. All right, on to Melchizedek, on to the Bible, Revelation. So we're gonna call this part 1. I'm gonna really try to make part 2 of this video of this series tomorrow night, Wednesday night. And then we've got the live channeling on Thursday, so it's gonna be kind of crazy, but we just didn't get as far tonight as we wanted to. Finally at midnight tonight, I'm like, guys, we have to call this. I'm getting too tired. I still have to make the video. I'm gonna be a mess. So we're gonna try to continue this tomorrow. Knock on wood, that's the idea, that's the hope here. All right, so last week we got through basically chapter 3 is all in Revelation. And these are the 7 letters to the 7 churches that are now in present day Turkey. And again, we talked about Lucifer last week. So Melchizedek tonight had me start with chapter 4. And I basically read through the middle of chapter 9 today. It's only a couple of pages. It's not much, but it is extremely dense. All right. So if you're following along, you can grab your Bible and that. So kind of interesting. They had me kind of start at the end of 9. I'm sorry, the middle of 9, which is verse 11. And verse 11 here talks about, well, verse 7, I'll say, talks about this bottomless pit. And really what Melchizedek is saying is that this bottomless pit that's talked about in the Bible here, in Revelation specifically, is our modern day hell. This is hell. It's very real, they're saying. So there was a key that opened up the bottomless pit. I'm really paraphrasing all this, much more detail. But verse 11 says, they have as king over them the angel of the bottomless pit. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek he is called Apollyon. Okay. Here's what Melchizedek started to say here. He said, dear one, can you please read chapter 9, verse 7? So I'm going to do that now. In appearance, the locusts were like horses arrayed for battle. On their heads were what looked like crowns of gold. Their faces were like human faces, their hair like women's hair, and their teeth like lions' teeth. They had scales like iron breastplates, and the noise of their wings was like the noise of many chariots with horses rushing into battle. They have tails like scorpions and stings, and their power of hurting men for 5 months lies in their tails. They have a king over them of the bottomless pit. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek he is called Apollyon. Okay, so that's really going to be out of the blue for you if you're not familiar with Revelation, if you hadn't had a chance to read it yet. That's chapter 9, verse 7. And here they continue. Thank you, Shawna. Abaddon is a central figure for today's audience. This quote-unquote fallen angel, the king of the bottomless pit, which is the dwelling place of all varieties of evil, of torment, of anguish. This is your hell, dear friends, and this is very real. They continued here. Let us first start by explaining more about the imagery in these few chapters. Chapter 6. All right, chapter 6, a little bit of background. But between chapters 4 and 6, the scroll with the 7 seals appears, and this is the beginning of the breaking open of the seals. Okay. Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the 7 seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures say, as with the voice of thunder, come. And I saw, and behold, a white horse. Right, that's the beginning of chapter 6. So this is the first seal being broken, the first horse. Melchizedek wanted to talk about these horses. What do these horses represent for us? And so there is a white horse, seal number 1, a red horse, seal number 2, a black horse, and then a pale horse. These are the first 4 seals of the 7 of this scroll. And this is as far as we got today in terms of talking about this imagery. And here's what Melchizedek had to say. These 4 horses represent the rudderless waves of death and destruction that are upon you now, dear friends. Let us take the first horse, the white horse. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and its rider had a bow, and a crown was given to him. And he went out conquering and to conquer. The white horse, the first horse, represents innocence. However, the rider in this case with the bow and a crown out conquering represents the downfall and the breakdown of humanity's innocence. Those in power, a weapon, a crown to denote authority, and the will to conquer other humans. This also represents the royal bloodlines, the rise of the monarchies, the building of human kingdoms on earth. Appointed by God, the people were told, and in most cases, the power they possessed and the way that they ruled was not in alignment with Source, but instead with greed and ego. All right, so the white horse represented innocence. The rider with the bow, the crown, and the will to conquer represents the loss of innocence. And this is also representing the mighty royal bloodlines. And look at everything that Queen Elizabeth had to say about the royal bloodline. So we are in the know about what this all means when we talk about royal bloodlines and the subjugation here on the planet and who's really behind all of that. And they continued here. A kiss on the ring, bowing down to the feet. Not appointed by God, but in fact, carefully and deliberately placed in power. Conquering, pillaging, plundering became normalized when there was nothing normal about this. All right, and they said here, this, dear friends, was asserted on behalf of the negative reptilian regime who understood early on how to control and to manipulate entire empires through the king and the kingdom infrastructure. Yes, I mean, I think for us on this ascension path, we're all pretty familiar with this theme, especially having listened to Queen Elizabeth and some of the other things that are out there right now in terms of the monarchies. So, and, looking this up, there's been monarchies since 3000 BC, they say, at least, what researchers have been able to determine. And my little quick Google search said today, so 3,000 years before Christ. So it's not just, the modern day monarchies of like Britain, for example. So these, monarchies have been around for a long time, putting one or two people in charge and ruling the masses, giving that one person, that one leader, just, all this incredible power over the people. All right. So that's a negative reptilian construct, and it is in fact crumbling. All right. And then they continue here. The second horse, the second seal, bright red. This represents eyes turned inward so that humans would see only red and therefore become blind to the truth of who and what they are. A bright red horse, the eyes turned backwards. That was what that represents. Blindness here. The rider upon this horse permitted to take peace from the earth so that men should slay one another, and he was given a great sword. These are often brutal these are about the often brutal civil wars, the insurrections, tribes against tribes, races against races, nations against nations, buying into a belief system whereby one has the ability to snuff out the life of another out of principle, out of blindness, out of rage, out of lust, out of duty and honor, or simply because one was told to do so. The great blindness, a denial of the divine in oneself and others. Moving on to the third seal here. The black horse, representing heartlessness, a separation from love and compassion, a complete and total surrender to the concept that you are all separate. The false belief that one must take in order to receive, and that the calamities that afflict your brothers and sisters have nothing to do with you. All right, heartlessness, loss of compassion and love. The rider here on the black horse has a balance in his hand, so like a scale, a balance. And the passage says, a quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, but do not harm oil and wine. And looking this up, a denarius is like a day's wages. So the complaint here is, gosh, just get a little bit of wheat for a day's wages, or you can get 3 quarts of barley. But the idea is that this is expensive. But do not harm oil and wine, the passage says, which is really interesting. And here's what Melchizedek had to say. In this passage, the oil and the wine represents humanity's penchant for alcohol and other inebriating substances, addictions and dependencies that oftentimes take precedence over the basic necessities of life, such as food. And there is the penchant for believing in scarcity, the high cost of wheat and barley in this instance, denoting a widespread belief that feeding oneself or feeding one's family is expected to be expensive and outside of one's means. All right, so there's a lot in these few sentences here. And they continue. We'll stop and talk about it. The rider on the black horse tells the tale of humanity in squalor, unable to afford food and basic necessities, and those few who control such things making sure that you wholeheartedly buy into this idea. The divisiveness of your experience allows for the acceptance of this concept that some shall have and some shall not. And again, stepping on others to thrive. All right. One more paragraph on this and then I'll stop. Melchizedek. Knowing yourselves as separate perpetuates this false narrative. Those who control the dark agenda here understand that great power can be wielded over those who know themselves in lack. Great power also comes with a sleeping species. Therefore, the addictions, the dependencies, the substances continue to be available and accessible for those even with the smallest amounts of money. The fentanyl crisis is one such example. Okay. But don't touch the oil and wine they're talking about here. We look at humanity as a whole. Look at this planet. Just about everywhere you're able to travel in modern times, people are drinking. We love our alcohol. We love to have a drink, and most of the world is like this. There's also prescription drugs, and there's all kinds of things that we put into our body. That is mood altering, mind altering, for example. So, it's kind of like we somehow make room and time and money for this kind of thing in our world when we may have a hard time eating nutritious meals 3 times a day, for example. So they're making a point here that it's always going to feel expensive because this is how the negative reptilian regime has set us up. We are set up to think that everything is scarce and everything is so expensive that it's unaffordable. So yes, and I sit here today and I feel exactly what's going on with the economy and inflation and how expensive things have become. But I think the point here is, that's all by design. This is not just happenstance here. Our financial and economic infrastructure here is based on this, making sure that, there's a few that will rise to the top that'll have tons of money, but for 90% of the people, you don't have a lot and it feels very scarce. So this has probably been the way they have crafted this for hundreds of years. So not just even in our modern times. So this has always been a thing for humanity to always feel like everything's always outside of our reach, outside of our means. Everything feels scarce. And it's a complete false belief. And it is something that has been architected for us. And again, folks who are feeling lack and feeling scarcity are easier to manipulate and control. There's all that fear, all that suppression, all that suffering. And then let's make sure they can get fentanyl for $1 a pill. Certainly nobody wants to be able to afford heroin anymore or opioids. Like, let's just give them fentanyl for $1 a pill. So we've done a video on the dark state and the fentanyl crisis here. It's been a while, but if you search fentanyl, Shawna L. Francis, that video should come up for you. You can see what Melchizedek had to say about fentanyl here. I'm going to say, has it been a year? Maybe 6 to 12 months ago. I can't remember exactly. All right. One more horse here. The final and fourth horse in these passages, a pale horse. The pale horse being colorless, nondescript, almost fading into the background, represents the nearly invisible hand that rocks the cradle. Those who control and manipulate from the shadows just out of conscious reach, just below the surface. So chapter 6, verse 8, the writer's name was Death, and Hades followed him. And they were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill with sword, and with famine, and with pestilence, and by wild beasts of the earth. Okay, so that's the rider on the pale horse. His name was Death. And here's what Melchizedek had to say here. This, dear friends, emblemizes the path of destruction that the planet is on today. This is a foretelling of your next century as the planet continues to heat and ocean levels continue to rise. The inability for much of humanity to keep pace with the changing earth. Death will befall many, and it will feel as though earth is straining at the seams. And this is really kind of where we called it. And I said, guys, it's midnight. I got to start making this video. Can we continue this later? Because they wanted to talk about what the wild beasts of the earth, and it was taking them some time. You know, it definitely is an interesting process going through this with Melchizedek. This is only the second time in working through the Bible series, maybe third, where they've really kind of taken their time. Believe it or not, this 15 minutes of narrative here that I just walked through with you took us 3 hours, basically 3 or 4 hours with some starts and stops, and I took a break to eat, but I was in meditation a lot. They were working with my field. They were, they're being very deliberate with the word choice. And I want to make sure that I'm bringing it through perfectly for them, to be honest, and also the energies that they want to bring forth. So we called it quits right here. There's still so much in these few chapters that we wanted to cover tonight. So again, I'm going to call it for tonight. Hopefully tomorrow we'll get to this and I can make part 2 of this series and we'll continue on. Again, would love to see you Thursday at the live channeling event with Melchizedek, 4 p.m. Please sign up at Eventbrite, pay whatever you'd like. Any kind of donation is welcome. And that link is below. Okay, I'm off to bed for the night. Thanks, team, for being here. I hope you're doing great. Don't forget what I said about meditation, and I'll see you hopefully tomorrow. Mwah.